Yeah, films. We watched some films. So let's talk about those films.
All right, let's talk about underwater. so, fun enough, although like not fun at all, was that someone today was like, "Oh, this took place in 2020. That was 2 years ago," and I was like, "Shut up,
Shut your
shut
mouth.
up!
No, it
No,
wasn't.
it didn't." And I was like, "It's 2022. It doesn't even seem real." So, underwater is from 2020, which is 2 whole years ago from the time that we're recording this, and I think that's insane.
It is
Uh,
insane.
but Underwater is about a crew of oceanic researchers working for a deep sea drilling company try to get to safety after a mysterious earthquake devastates their deep water research and drilling facility located at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. It's directed by William Eubank, who also did The Signal, which is a film was like one of the first films I ever saw as like a film student where I got like a pass to see a
Okay.
film before it like premiered. And I
Fancy.
went to this really tiny theater. I brought my sister, and she's still mad at me because it was such a trippy film. And she
That's
like was
funny.
very young, and she was like, "Why did you make me watch this thing?" Um, so it like sticks with me as that. So thank you, Mr. Eubank, for making that film, and I
Yeah.
can have that experience. But Underwater takes place very that under the ocean.
It's under there, yeah.
Deep in the Mariana Trench, the deepest trench on Earth, is an underwater drilling site called Kepler 822 and a bunch of other ones. And we are first introduced to Nora, who's played by Kristen Stewart, on the seemingly empty base. Uh, she works for a company known as Industries, which is just like one letter away from Titan Industries. And I feel like that would have been really cool, but also
Yeah.
on the nose. But she works for TN Industries and she's a mechanic. And you would think like if you're employed in an underwater facility, you have like a more like not that mechanics aren't important, but you think of like like engineer or something, right? And she's just
Yeah.
like a mechanic. Like you're like,
I
oh
mean,
right,
clearly they needed one down there.
yeah. Yeah, well, it's just like sometimes you forget that like, oh yeah, we need like like all the jobs. Like
Yeah.
in space there's probably like there would
Well,
be a
because you're
mechanic.
super far away from anyone else. So you like, yeah,
Yeah.
you need people who know how to do plumbing, you need people who know how to do like all the infrastructural
You need a
things.
cook, like you need everything.
Yeah.
So she's a mechanic. And through voiceover we get introduced to the grungy and sad world that she lives in. She says, under the water, you lose track of time. You don't know what day and night is. Which is super true. Like you're just in there and it becomes this constant. And as 2020 taught us, when you're inside all day, every
Yeah.
day for years, you do honestly forget what time is. It doesn't exist anymore. So we can
Yeah.
relate way more to her experience now than I'm sure that the creators expected.
Yeah.
Um, and giving us incredible alien vibes, Kepler 82 and the other places she and other workers traverse are incredibly claustrophobic and industrial. So much. And Nora rambles on about her uncaring world, illuminating her depressing character when we hear some strange, turning, creaking sounds that you really do not want to hear when you're underwater.
Yeah.
Like, there shouldn't be like, "Oh, the base has to settle." Like, no, it should have already settled, it should be done settling. Everything needs to
Yeah.
work the way that it's supposed to work. And then well, first of all, she sees a spider and she's like, "What are you doing in here?" Which is a good question. But also she feels a few drops before it becomes very clear that something is wrong because the water is supposed to be outside of
Yeah.
this, and now there's little bits inside that we didn't plan for. And then
Yeah.
the base erupts into a watery grave while Nora frantically runs through the halls, yelling for everyone to wake up and attempts to seal off areas that have been flooded. And at this point, we see many workers rushing to where she is, but there's no time. Like, if she does not close this door, everybody
Yeah.
did. And so she's getting yelled at by another character to just seal it up. And she
Yeah.
waits till honestly the very last minute. Like she really tried.
Yeah.
And has to seal this place. And so ultimately it results in the deaths of those workers.
Yeah.
Um, who just like happen to be sleeping. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Uh, and along her journey to the escape pods, she runs into other workers who are trying to survive. So we have Rodrigo, who's the first person she meets, and he's a soft spoken man who works hard to get to know Nora and happens to already know a bit about her, but he's just like someone who you like kind of forget because he's just like there. Um, but so nice. And he even like goes as far as like trying to comfort her as she struggles with the unintentional murder that just occurred.
Yeah.
And throughout this whole experience, he's just like, yeah, like, it's rough out there, but you had to do what you had to do.
Yeah.
There's Paul, who's played by TJ Miller, and he's our strange Alice in Wonderland obsessed underwater weirdo who serves as comic relief.
Yeah.
There's Captain Lucian, who attempts to keep things under control and make a man out of the crew. Emily, who's a glorified intern, I mean, research assistant, who really didn't want to be here in the first place, and surprisingly is a voice of reason.
Yeah.
She's the only one who's just like, not the only one, everyone's like, "Yeah, we're messed up. We just have to now deal with that," but she's like, "This is messed up." Like,
Yeah.
we should all just give up. She like, I remember at one point, Kat, you were like, "They want to live so much harder than anyone does." Like, they fight
Yeah.
so hard to keep going, and there's like, "For why?" And she the whole time, I'm always like, "No, we just give up. We just stop doing whatever
That
this
would have been
is."
me, like, 100%. I'd be like, "It's what it is." That's
Yeah.
crazy. I
Yo.
wouldn't I shouldn't have come down here and I knew that.
No, who knew this was gonna happen? Me, I
Yeah.
did, and now look at it
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
And then lastly, there's Smith, who is also there. Um, that's it. That's all I have to say about Smith. What a boring character. And this ragtag group navigates the watery grave and decide the best way to survive is to walk a mile underwater to a different facility with presumably working escape pods, because apparently this is the Titanic.
Yeah.
And there's like there were some, but they're like broken or whatever. But it's just like there should be pods
So
that
many
aren't just
more,
one
yeah.
person. Like, you know how much space that takes up? That every escape pod can only fill up one person, and there has to be like thousands of people who work in this base. How does it work? If there's not thousands of people, like, okay. But
Yeah.
however, since this is a horror movie, and apparently the horrors of being underwater in a base that is taking on water isn't enough to scare people, there are also mysterious beings stalking and picking off our crew one by one, like a slasher
Yeah.
or creature feature, I guess.
Yeah.
So, we talk about before the creatures, the underwater horror of it, because that was what was really interesting to me. I thought, like, when the creatures got introduced, I was like, "Oh, cool, we got extra." But
Yeah.
I was, like, already pretty terrified because, again, claustrophobia, you ain't catching me down there.
Yeah.
And just, like, the fact that the environment wants to kill you was
Yeah.
scary enough for me already. So, I really enjoy this film despite its bad reviews, and I do understand the disappointment because there is kind of an empty plot. It's just like a walk film, but so is Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings.
That's true.
um, and there are one-dimensional characters. Like, there's not really any growth to say. Though I
That's
do think
true.
Kristen Stewart did a good job. But there was something charming and honest about this setting that captured my interest immediately because I feel like it wasn't really about them. There,
Yeah, it's
it
more
was
the
about
situation than the characters, yeah.
yeah, it's everything else. It's like what we get to see as they're traveling through this place and what you get to infer about how they got here. That to me was scary and interesting, not them. Like, I don't even care. This was like
Yeah, I
an
would agree with that. Maybe
environmental
that's why
horror
we
film.
liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, I am terrified of closed claustrophobic spaces. Like I said, space itself is terrifying to me because we're not meant to exist up there. But neither are we meant to exist in the ocean. And the amount of care that goes into the construction of these bases, the suits, and all of that is more fascinating and proof that we shouldn't be there. Like how
Yeah.
much like work we have to put in just to exist and survive down there is like that's too much. Like
Yeah.
the earth is trying to say, "Do not come down here," and we're like, "Okay, but what if we just do all this now?" And they're like, "Why?" And so as soon as we're introduced to that suffocating empty facility and Nora just like brushing her teeth and waxing poetic, I was in. I was like, "This is great." And watching crew people not only die from the monsters in the film, but also becoming victims to the environment they were disrespecting by being there was also terrifying.
Yeah.
So let me get into spoilers. So definitely check it out if you want to. But like I said, not a lot of people loved it. I think like it's an enjoyable film if you're not expecting, like, big things from it. You just want a fun creature feature film and just, like, go in just to have fun with it, and, like,
Yeah.
Kat still got a lot out of it even though I live tweeted the entire thing to her. So, like, she knew who
Yeah.
the big bad was and was like, "It's fine."
Yeah, I feel like I was watching it like I was watching Alien. I was just like, it's very fun. I don't care. I care about some of the characters, but I don't really care about their backstories. Essentially, like they're in this situation and that's scary. Like you were saying, like I feel like that's what really made it more fun than I think if we went in with like media analysis classes on. Like if we watch this for not just I'm scared of
Isolation,
the
underwater,
ocean.
whatever.
Yeah, I don't maybe isolation, but like, yeah, I feel like if we were watching it with a different intent, we might not have liked it as much, but because of what we went into, not necessarily expecting it to be making some sort of crazy big statement, it was fun.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
totally allowed sometimes. And just like
Yeah.
with Alien, like it has been around for forever. Everyone knows what the answer is.
Yeah.
Like we know what the creature is. You still have fun. Like you still
Yeah.
watch that and you're like, wow, this is a fun run around time.
Yeah, like what a
So
wonderful, hilarious, everyone dies.
ridiculous film. Yeah. So um we're getting to spoiler town. I'm going to tell you how people die. I'm going to tell you what the monsters are. I'm going to tell you all kinds of things. But
Yeah.
it hopefully will make you appreciate this film in the same way that I appreciated it, and maybe elevate like your expectations, but also like keep them in line. So underwater actually almost immediately falls into the like almost failed because it fell into the terrible, exhausted, overused trope of killing off its only black character and doing that first, which is
Yeah.
a big no-no, especially it's 2020. What are
Yeah.
you doing? I will say that no named characters die all around us, and in like you can, it's safe to infer that like thousands of them do. But Rodrigo is the first character to die that we actually cared about,
Yeah.
and how he dies was enough to distract me from that faux pas, and also Mahmoudou Athi, who plays him, his performance really had me in my feels. Like I really enjoyed him. I thought he was like such a soft, kind man,
Yeah.
and we see like his nervous fear overshadowed by Emily's because she's so much louder than him and she's like very vocal, like we shouldn't be here. And he's just in the background, like, agree, like
Yeah.
confirmed. But he's just trying to make it. And he very quickly becomes like second fiddle to every other character in there. And which is why I think they kill him off so easily. But when I was watching it, I was like, couldn't he have been Smith? Like,
Yeah.
he didn't have to be Rodrigo. Like, I would have enjoyed seeing, like, Athi make it to the end, even if he was such a, like, nothing character like Smith was, um, and have him live.
Yeah.
Then, like, he's worth, like, protecting more than Smith is, but whatever. Um while trying to flee the deteriorating base, the crew dons these hard suits and submerge themselves in water. And once they reach their location, they work to open the doors and pressurize the space that they're in. However, Rodrigo's helmet was faulty and begins to crack. Before they like put the suits on, Emily again is like distracting us and freaking out because she's like, "I don't even have a suit," which is I was like, no one should be on this base who doesn't have a suit. First of all, I was
Yeah.
like, again, are we in the Titanic?
Yeah.
So she's like screaming. So, and it's to the point where like people are trying to calm her down that you don't even hear that Nora's like, some of these are faulty. Like she says
Yeah.
it straight out, like some might write. And he takes one, and I think he knew. Like
Yeah.
he's like an unspoken hero in this, and it's kind of ridiculous that he doesn't get enough like respect for it. But
Yeah.
um his helmet begins to crack, and it's like the first really terrifying thing that happens, like, because 'cause you're seeing it, and then all of a sudden, Emily and Nora are, like, screaming, like, "Do not depressurize it," or whatever, like, "Do not open the door, don't do it," and as they're doing that, the counter gets pressurized, and Rodrigo just implodes in his suit, and it's just
Yeah.
black, and then they're screaming, and you're just
Yeah.
like, "What?" Because it happens so fast, and you're just like,
Yeah.
as soon as that crack happened, you were like, "No, no, 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 no," and then it did, and I was like, "Oh, no."
Yeah.
That's why you weren't supposed to be down there. Why are you down here? But I did find some interesting factual errors about their suits and the deaths that occur on this helpful website called Movie Mistakes. And they explain the way the implosions were simulated isn't exactly accurate. At that depth, going from a pressurized suit immediately to unpressurized would completely crush you to almost non existence. Instead, in the cases of Rodrigo and the captain, they seem to explode with such a force and outward exertion of energy that it blows everything and everyone back. The worst being Rodrigo. He implodes, as the movie says, but a regular size, albeit torn off human hand hits Nora on her helmet later, and I think there was a normal size eyeball that floated by. Again, these parts would be reduced or flattened to an undefinable size. So it's like they don't keep things like what's the word I'm looking for? Um they don't hold a lot of the rules throughout. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like sometimes this is how science works and sometimes this is how science works.
Yeah.
Cuz I think there's like a part where like just like the suit integrity doesn't make sense in some of the
Yeah.
spots. They also mentioned that the hard suits the drivers wear have soft, relatively normal gloves in soft joints, more akin to a football uniform with armor over spandex. They're at the bottom of the Mariana Trench at 36,000 feet below sea level. The pressure is over 7,000 psi, whatever that science equals. Without a hard suit, they would instantly be crushed. So it doesn't make any sense that they have these like flimsy gloves. I was like, that again, this is so terrifying. Why are we here where just like our suit not being it kills us?
Yeah.
And also there is an issue that Kat and I had with the ending, which was addressed in one of the factual mistake reports. And it says the Kepler's energy core is a huge nuclear reactor. It can easily obliterate the whole station, so its accessibility should be protected by all kinds of fail-safe systems and high-level security protocols. Yet Nora, a simple mechanic, can fire it up and overcharge it without any password, keycard, identification method, or such, only by pressing a few buttons and then space, not even enter. There's not even a confirmation process before switching the reactor to terminal overload, and it's like a few seconds. Like it was like
Yeah, like you could do that by mistake so easily.
yes, so many, and like throughout the whole film, like like they try to get into like a door, and it's like, oh, this thing doesn't work, and she's just like, oh, I opened it up and I connected two wires, and now everything works. And it's
Yeah.
like that's not that's not how anything works.
Yeah.
Um, I think the real horror of this, though, like the environment is super interesting, uh, as we find a lot in our exploration of film, happens to be people. Right?
Yeah.
And these are things that like uh influenced my appreciation of the film because I enjoyed these like small background details that you have to like fill in as you're going. So
Yeah.
there's like these announcements throughout the base. There's flyers on the wall, and even the company's goal were horrifying and haunting itself.
Yeah.
Um, the vibe, like I said before, reminded me heavily of the aquatic horror games BioShock and Soma, specifically with BioShock because they feature an underwater civilization that relied heavily on propaganda and was reminiscent of 1984. And
Yeah.
in Underwater, we learn about TN Industries through the signage in the facilities and the announcements over the intercoms, reminding the workers that they're not just part of the team, but a part of the family, and
Yeah.
to file complaints with their supervisors. And we hear like hear the file complaint with your supervisor. I was like texting Kat about them. And it's like at the time when like everything is exploding, it's just like, I'd like to report that I don't want to be here anymore. Like I want to
Yeah.
report that like this is a bad idea for everyone to be
Yeah.
here. And seeking refuge, Nora finds herself on another base that had been previously abandoned, and that site was full of posters and other paperwork encouraging hard work and obedience. And it felt so eerie to imagine that the life they lived before the earthquake and how horrifying it was to work for this company. It
Yeah.
was very clearly like when I was watching it, I was like, this is anti-capitalist AF. I was like,
Yeah.
this is like people are totally neglecting like all this stuff that's happening that's telling you like the villain is TN Industries. It's not the ocean,
Yeah.
actually. And in the end credits, we learn more about the film's background and about TN Industries specifically. We learn that the year is 2050, which is not far away. And despite strange sightings at drilling sites, the industry is persevering and drilling for natural resources despite that. The company refuses to shut down even after the horrific acts that occur in this film, and they silence the two survivors.
Yeah.
And it's not too far off from our current state of the world. And despite the existence of monsters, this film is completely believable. Like, it could,
Also,
besides
those
like
monsters probably exist. But yes, continue.
also, yes, in some form, right?
Yeah.
And we've covered this in episodes previously, like The Bay, where we explore that those in charge ignore horrible events and they cover up the murders of thousands, while the money hungry industries continue to siphon the resources from our planet without any respect of understanding for the effects or the limitations of those. That
Yeah.
we're running out of them. They're not an answer to our problems, and they're just going to cause more drama.
Yeah.
And Emily, again, our voice of reason, says in a moment of awe and terror, "We're not even supposed to be down here. We drilled to the bottom of the ocean and we don't know what came out." And it's essentially, she's like, we just take and take and take. Like, I couldn't find the exact quote, which is stupid because it's like the
A pretty
thesis for
big
the whole
important.
film. And I
Yeah.
was like, why is it nowhere? But she just says, like, we came down here and we just take and take and take, and then we awaken something.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we did.
Also,
And
it's
what
like maybe
they,
we shouldn't frack. We shouldn't do fossil fuels
yes,
anymore. We should just
we
do
shouldn't
different
drill, no offshore
fuels.
drilling.
Yes.
um, but as mentioned, there are monsters afoot, and the film becomes less aquatic horror and more creature feature when we first catch glimpse of these strange slender man-like creatures outside. And as the crew ventures forward to safety, they encounter a dead body that appears to have had something emerge from inside of it. So they're like,
Yeah.
this wound seems like it was internal and came out. And so, in a truly alien fashion, we see that a small creature has been born inside this human, and in a move that would greatly anger Ripley, they bring it inside and then touch it with their bare hands.
Yep.
We were like, why are you doing this? Same thing with like
Yeah.
protocol. Protocol says you can't bring that in here.
Yeah, like
um
leave it outside. There's no reason.
what, like, we don't have time for this.
We need
We
to get
need
out
to
of here, not
go.
investigate this weird
The
creature.
ocean
Like,
keeps killing us. So
yeah.
could we not?
Yeah.
So these creatures turn out to be deep ones, which are Lovecraftian creations. Deep ones are fish-like creatures who reside underwater, obviously, and they're attracted to humans and try to mate with them to create half breeds of these like fish human people.
Yeah.
And if you read certain Lovecraftian lore, like Innsmouth, you will see some of those fish people. And for the more majority of the film, we are afraid of those beings specifically. They're lurking beasts that are both incredibly quick and strong. They rip the wacky Paul right out of his hard suit, just
Yeah.
like yoink. And he was just, I was like, oh no. And then they like tell you, like, they're like, how was that possible? Like, they had to explain how
Yeah.
impossible that was because we don't know what suits are. And they spend most of the films in the shadows or throwing in or dragging the crew around. And at one point, the last remaining survivors, Nora, Emily, and Smith, encounter a den of them slumbering right in front of the very place that they need to be. Figures.
Yeah.
And once they accidentally are awoken, you think that's the end of our girl Nora until something manages to frighten them and they like skitter off. We're not
Yeah.
frightened, but like draws their attention. And you're like, what could be more interesting than a yummy snack like Nora? I mean that in
Yeah.
both definitions of
Yeah.
the words. And in the last moments of the film, we're introduced to the monster and king of creatures himself, Cthulhu. And he has risen. TN Industries having dug so far deep into this trench that they breached the interdimensional space he was napping in. And he awakens and is angered by the drill, and he seeks to wreak havoc, and his minions, the deep ones, race to finish off the last remaining humans as they escape in their pods. So, in a last attempt to save those two and maybe the world, because she doesn't know what Cthulhu is, Nora initiates a ridiculously easy self destruct sequence for the nuclear reactor that no one mechanic should be able to access or launch simply by pushing the space bar, but she does. And we watch as she goes out in a moment of glory, leaving Cthulhu and his friends to scramble away to safety. And
Yeah.
it does not appear to show the death of Cthulhu as if you could just like blow him up or whatever. And instead hints at the potential for more chaos. Um, because he just like kind of scrambles. Like you see him
And he's
like
just
run.
like,
He's like,
"Oh,
oh
that's
fuck.
gross." Somebody runs away.
Yeah. TN Industries covering up the events and proceeding to dig while Cthulhu lurks along the ocean floor leaves me to believe a sequel could exist. Or perhaps this opens the door for a film multiverse of Lovecraftian lore and creatures. Like, will Guillermo del Toro finally finish the Mountains of Madness film that I dream about? One can
Yeah.
only hope. It can open the doors for all the Lovecraftian lore made by other people and done in a really cool way.
Yeah. And if anything, this is also like, okay, don't drill, don't use fuels, but it's also like industry towns are bad.
Mhm.
Like, don't let Amazon own a town because it will
Yeah,
be bad
it's
for everyone
terrifying.
involved. Um,
Watch Sorry to Bother You or
yeah.
Severance.
Yeah, no, like 100%. So it's like also just like a little nod to the fact that that would be a horrible idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah. I didn't realize it was Cthulhu. I just thought they were octopus or like squids,
He was
like
so much
giant squids.
Cthulhu.
I was just like, the
He's like,
ocean
"Oh."
probably has that down there.
I mean, yeah, Cthulhu probably living down there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I just like I wasn't thinking like interdimensional space time. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah,
that
yeah,
just
yeah.
lives down there. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I have never doubted for a second that that lives already down in the ocean, and that's why we shouldn't go
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
there. Yeah. So
All right.
that was what for me. That's where I was at with that.